Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of By the Members. Sam, that was a really lackluster countdown. Are you all right, mate? Usually you go, yeah.
I'm muted, good start, right?
Yeah,
Usually,
brilliant,
when I
perfect.
do it too aggro, like, fucking hell, you're keen, you're fucking keen.
I like it. I like it when
can't
you're
hear
keen.
myself, so I don't want to be just screaming, 3, 2...
Yeah, but you usually do a good 3 to 1. I was like, you went 3. Like, none of us want to be here, Sam. Do you know what I mean? None of us want to be here. Duncan's got a hard out in 2 hours. This show is easily a fucking marathon. We're gonna have to like breeze through loads of stuff.
Unfortunately, there's fuck all's happened. Like Blast hasn't had any more events. Refresh hasn't done anything silly. Major, everything's
Slow
cool with that as far as I know.
Yeah, one of the top teams in the world is
MIBR.
getting accused of match fixing. There's nothing going on.
I feel as though MIBR, everything's just cool with them. The rules are just legit in every league in the world. Fucking hell, this is ridiculous, this one, isn't it?
Right. Well, since we've got a hard out, let's get straight into it. Let's talk about the Blast LA. Right. So, as events go, it pretty much lived up to my fucking expectations. I'd talked about this on a stream at the time. I went and had people who were actually at the event go and do some like census work for me. Okay. I had some people who, first of all, they were people who paid for this fucking VIP intimate experience,
the front row or whatever it's called.
Yeah, which I couldn't see any demonstrable difference from the stream. As far as I can tell, the front row experience was basically call out positions for MIBR during their games. I think that's what you were paying for, which happened very blatantly on the stream. If you were watching Gaules or however you fucking say his name. So I mean, you know, that was.
I will just say, by the way, like
money well spent, I guess.
Listen, yes, every venue for the last year or two, I've seen almost every venue's had this problem, right? Occasional people with a sign, go A, go B, you know, those sorts of things. But here's the distinction I want to make here. Why is it always MIBR? Why is it always MIBR every time? Like, the difference is, on the other ones, it depends what the venue is. If it's a North American crowd, maybe they do fit in that Cloud9. MIBR just has concerts all the way around the world, like some network of the worst people to be a fan.
To be fair, it definitely was going on at the Boston Major. The difference was there was no way that they could have heard it. That there were people shouting out positions for Cloud9. And we did have an incident at E-League where I think we had to ask somebody to leave because of Cloud9. The difference is, of course, at E-League, you were warned at the start by, you fucking know, I don't need to tell you, you were there when we used to do the TV show.
They used to give you a little speech, basically.
Yeah, floor manager used to give you a speech. Yeah, exactly. And would tell you straight up, if you fucking shout at any positions and compromise the competitive integrity, you're going to get thrown out in the break. Because obviously we're not going to do it on air. It's a live TV show, but you are going to go.
Would be hilarious if they did just fucking like two ex-NFL linebacker motherfuckers just literally plow through a crowd of people.
You remember you remember my personal bodyguard, right? You remember fucking Chico. You don't want him to fucking throw you out. I'll tell you that for free. Miss that motherfucker. Anyway.
All you need to know is this guy used to do that handshake where he purposely hurts your hand a bit and you have to pretend like, it's fine. Hello.
I don't think it was purposely. Like, I don't think you understand. I don't think you understand how hard he actually is. Like, and people don't realize, like, this motherfucker was like ex fucking special forces, like didn't drink, like was total clean living, was just fucking every time he had a 5-minute break, I'll just go lift some weights and do some press ups in a room. He was fucking insane. I used to love that guy. Real nice dude with it. I was responsible for my life, so especially had to like him because he was the guy who was going to have to fucking dive in front of a bullet for me. So anyway, I couldn't discern, like, for all this talk about this big intimate experience that was supposed to be going on, all the messages that I got back from people who said they attended and they were just like, it was just basically you could sit in the front row. People would occasionally ask if you wanted to take pictures. So it just sounds like nothing. It sounds like it was completely overhyped. It sounds like pretty much, remember what E-League used to offer? Again, I'm talking a lot about E-League, obviously the former employers. Do you remember how they used to have that experience outside as well, where we would go up and we would sign
like the fan
shirts
zone
and mouse match, the fan zone, yeah, exactly. It sounds like it was just a piss weak version of that, and it was a fan zone. How much more money was without a zone
ticket, by the way, opposed to like the normal ticket?
I'm not too sure actually, because I think it was just you. like I think everybody could have got it. Actually, I'm not too sure because the VI. Do you remember when the original cost came through and it was 4 times as much as it was at the Staples Center? So I don't know. Actually, it's funny. I didn't even think to ask how much extra people paid for this, but it just sounds like everybody was kind of flatly disappointed with it. And it wasn't like this access all areas shit that they hyped up. It was just literally what you would do at most LAN events these days, where you have fan meetups. So unless these guys have left something out, it just sounds like it was a load of bullshit to basically like scramble and kind of big up the event. Here's the other thing. I'm sure you saw the attendance. I mean,
looked like it wasn't even full, even inside a small venue like that.
So I had a dude go around and count the chairs. Okay. So remember, 10,000 was the original.
I can tell you there was definitely already not 10,000 because I've seen most of it, like League of Legends finals in Korea. 10,000 is a lot of people. Is 10,000, mate. You need a lot of fucking roars. Think about it.
Right. So they had so it was 10,000 at the Staples Center, which likely they would have stripped out
Galen Center.
Some of the Galen Center, sorry, not Staples Center, my bad. They would have stripped out some of the stands, and then you're probably talking the original plan probably would have had 8,000, maybe 5,000. Okay.
Still pretty reasonable number.
Yeah. So I went and had a look at this venue, the furniture store, and I had a guy go around and count the chairs. 480 chairs,
and that's if it was full.
And that's if it was full.
And were people allowed to stand or anything? I assume not. In theory, you should have a seat, right?
Right. Well, he said at no point was it over half full. So he said
200 people.
So he said at best 240, 250. That's at any one time was sat down watching games. So it's a bit of a fucking drop off. I mean, when the Blast are talking about how it fell short of expectations, we underestimated the American market, to go from booking a 10,000 seat venue to not even be able to get 250 people to sit in fucking chairs for the entirety of your event is pretty fucking bad.
And then have to overcharge them.
And then have to overcharge them, yeah.
And this is the thing that's crazy, remember. Well, the one thing Blast never had a problem with, except for one event that I'm aware of, which is the one that went counter to ESL New York last year, where it was in Istanbul, where even then they had Astralis, but they didn't have the other good teams because they were at New York. Aside from that, the one thing Blast always has going for it, it's supposed to have the best teams in the world. Like, this one didn't have Astralis. Astralis isn't the best team right now. They had fucking Team Liquid, who's just done a Grand Slam, is probably the best NA team in any version of Counter-Strike to ever play the fucking game. And you can't get 500 people even in a room. You even by capacity, you couldn't have had 500 because you didn't have fucking hell.
I have no idea.
And then there's never a mea culpa. They never just say, like, listen, okay, we fucked up on this one. It's like the whole thing with the Intimate experience. Like, all they had to say was like, it's going to be a different experience. The other venue wasn't available or something like that. They always have to, it's like their way of lying is to double down even more.
Oh, of course it is, because that's all they know. I got an interesting anecdote we'll get to at the end of this segment. Basically, I have no idea why it was so hard to fill up. I think moving the dates probably didn't help. It overlapped with some other stuff that was going on, Overwatch, and I don't know how much overlap there is between CS:GO and Overwatch. Probably not a great deal,
probably
but
not much. Come on.
I mean, I'll be fair about that, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say maybe that did impact slightly because it was in LA.
LCS,
obviously, yeah. So little things like that. But just overall, I don't know how they're going to massage the numbers because it showed on the broadcast. People know this, that there'll be guys in the chat who broke our pinky promise that we weren't going to fucking watch it. And there'll be guys in the chat now who will be able to verify this. They wouldn't show crowd shots during multiple games. Basically, when they could get the steady cam and get a tight shot on the front row, then they'd do a crowd shot. But there was entire hours went by where you just didn't see the crowd. Now you think about that in esports where it's the fucking Panda Fest, right? Like, you know what I mean? Oh, but they're showing a crowd shot every 2 seconds. Yeah, he's still defusing a fucking bomb over here. Oh no, look, someone's cheering. Woo! Someone's holding up a sign. Someone's doing a dab. When you think about like the average fucking how insufferable it can be at the average esports event, The Blast just tried to ignore the fact that they had a fucking empty venue, and they tried to, like, you know, jazz it up as best as they could. But I think it's an absolute disaster. Not that the Blast will come out.
Oh, I've got a
and
great
say
one for you
that.
here, Rich. Because
They'll try and massage the numbers. I just don't know how they'll do it.
This is a great example of why you don't lie. You know, the famous thing that you tell kids is you don't tell them don't lie because it's wrong or it's unethical. You know what? Like, these are all things that they could argue. What you tell a kid, the best reason not to lie is you have to keep fucking track of all the lies. It's really hard the more lies you tell. And the problem with people like Refreshers, they're just lying every fucking word out their mouth. So here's about what I'm going to do now, right? And I'm going to read out a little section to you that Geordie Roig from Refresh said when they did an interview with HLTV.org. Are you ready? The section goes like this. It says, they ask him basically about, like, you know, what about if you grow a lot? Wouldn't that cause conflicts with other tournament organizers? And now this is what he says. I'll skip to the relevant part. He says, when we started in Copenhagen with TV production and 12,000 people in the stadium, that positively affected the ESL Pro League finals that were in Odense a few weeks later. Are you ready for the key part here, guys? If we would have made a boring tournament with no crowd and delays, people would have asked themselves, this is esports, and they would not have given it another chance. Right, by your own logic, Geordie Roig, Refresh and Blast, you've just fucked up events in LA for Counter-Strike for everyone else. By your own logic, because you had to try and take credit for ESL Pro League, you've just actually admitted that you fucked up events in LA. And by your own logic, I want an apology. You're bigging yourself up. Otherwise, give us an apology for this, then, please.
I really liked him in Star Trek: The Next Generation as well. I thought he played a really good character. You know, with the whole
maybe that was the overlap with the whole Overwatch League thing. You know.
Yeah. But look, I put a picture in the chat, Sam, if you want to bring it up.
It's quite low res.
And Duncan, you can have a look at this. I am telling you, right? That is all of the people that were there for the final.
This is where, like, I need to get a higher res version because I want to zoom in and see if it's like the same people copy and pasted in the crowd. You know, like one of those like CNN level like fake setups where the camera angle looks amazing.
You know, when you think about, like, and again, if this was 10 years ago, you wouldn't blink. This would be great. But you know what I mean? It's like you say, it's like this culmination of everything. You're talking about how you're taking it to the next level. You're talking about how successful your events are, blah, blah, blah. But that crowd is a pretty bad look, actually, for your events, I would say, overall. And just esports as a whole, I agree with you. I think when you compare and contrast, we just come off the back of ESL 1 Cologne. Think about the atmosphere in the crowd there.
15,000 sold out, I believe, that venue was.
Yeah. And then you come over to LA, this supposed esports hub, and that's what you get. You know, 200 dudes in a room, like old school esports used to be. So I think the event was an unmitigated disaster, just in terms of attendance. There was a fuck ton of tech problems as well. You know, people will definitely have picked up on this. I also had like, out of the guys that were giving me feeders from when they were there, they said the stage setup was a mess. Because if you look at it, how the Blast usually works is they have this like square setup, right? So it's like one game on each side, and they originally showed 4 games simultaneously. And that means that because sound travels outwards, if you're watching on the one side, you don't get the other commentators. But what was happening here was the 2 games that were commentated, it was flooding out into the furniture store in that lovely, you know, reverberating off that glorious wooden ceiling that they hyped up for some reason. And the acoustics were meant to be really bad. Like, people who were sat at one end said they could hear noise and sound from the other games because it was like 4 games. It was like 4 stages on one flat wall coming out into an area, which is like,
I bet it was just like having fucking schizophrenia or something. Just all these sounds in your head. Fucking, stop, turn the sound off.
Yeah, so it was a really bad event. It looked bad. The optics were bad. The turnout was bad. Viewership wasn't great. So I'm just looking to see how they are going to try and spin it all into a positive. They'll probably go with the whole, you know, we feel like this was a very specialized event, right? Something along the lines of it was like a throwback to what esports grassroots, but with the added advantage of having the best teams. It'll be something lame like that because there's no way they can dress it up. The Twitch viewership was down from what I could tell. The format didn't save the event.
Just think about this for a second. What possible things could have happened to their event where they'd admit it failed under these circumstances?
Yeah.
They're literally now spinning all these things that are objectively bad on every level as positives, not even as like, oh, it's not that bad. It's like, no, and it's an actual upgrade to have less people there. They want you to actually believe this is how stupid they are and how much contempt rather they have for you as the audience. They think you're going to believe they prefer to have an event with 280 people there as opposed to fucking 8,000 or something. They think you're going to believe that and that someone wanted to pay 3 times as much for a worse experience. No way.
And, they did that thing where they did that press release. So I want to talk a little bit about this and then we'll talk about the event itself and Liquid and everything. They did that press release where they were talking about how Astralis and Refresh were going to separate. And that was clearly timed to get as much positive press as they could because there's been a lot of negativity about, obviously, the relationship between Refresh and Astralis. First of all, you have the overarching story, right? Like, if you own tournaments and you own a team, at the very least, that team shouldn't compete in those tournaments.
And that goes without saying as far as I can tell.
Yeah, exactly. At the very least. In an ideal world, in a proper world, you just wouldn't own a team. You would make a decision about the business. So they put this announcement out saying that they were parting ways. Then I was...
Which, as usual, I'm just going to go ahead and make the usual joke so everyone understands what I mean here. I'm going to guess, magically, Nicola Nyhum's great aunt just actually threw 2 shell companies and magically now owns Astralis.
Well, it's interesting because I was highly skeptical of it because Refresh have just lied so many times to everybody. They've lied so many times to the community, so many times to us. I mean, like, literally told bare lies to my face. I've got a great story coming up after this. It'll blow your fucking mind.
Here we go.
But anyway, so I went through my usual source network, and I was able to get access to a company-wide email they'd sent out. And I published this on Deserto. And basically, I'll just read you the email. It's pretty short. It said, "Dear colleagues, yesterday we extended the contract." Sam, if you want to bring this up as well, it's over on Deserto. You'll be able to find it. It's just called Astralis, blah, blah. Anyway, dear colleagues, yesterday we extended the contracts through 2021 with the 5 Astralis players and coach Danny. Thank you, Nick, Casper, and Jacob for leading these negotiations during an exhausting 5 months, and Leo for being a sanity stopgap on the commercial terms. We can all be proud to have created a world-class team with a truly unique infrastructure around it. As part of these signatures, we are also committing to separating Astralis and Blast further. As we look to 2020 and the possible development of a league, right? Hold that thought. We must also recognize that the promise we gave 2 years ago to, after a build-up phase, separate ownership of competition and team is about ripe. The Astralis players have, as you all know, felt this on their social media streams, and I have no doubt that it has affected them since Miami. This, of course, will over time mean a larger separation of roles internally, as discussed at stand-ups and town halls in the past month. The Blast and team product performance teams are already fully separated, but we will, during the next months, be taking steps to make the other roles clearer and dedicated to either Blast or the teams, plural. So I guess they're including Origin in that.
Yeah, right, sure. Yeah.
No decisions have been taken, and we will be working with those of you holding dual roles in after the vacations to make this a seamless exercise. Furthermore, this means that we have started the first conversations with interested investors to acquire the majority shareholding, hold on to that thought, of Astralis, currently held by those also involved in Blast, thus completing our committed separation at a shareholder level as well. Steen and I will start addressing this commitment actively in the media, initially in the endemic landscape, hopefully at least for a while, putting the trolls to rest. Yes, because if you're against conflict of interest, you are a troll, ladies and gentlemen.
Who's this CNN? What the fuck are they talking about?
Mate, I'm amazed he didn't blame Russia. We have created something very special in esports across Blast, Astralis, and Origin, and we should be proud of this ahead of the separation and the parallel futures that each of these businesses will see. Feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions. Good luck to all of those in LA. Best, Nicola Nyhum. So, let's just talk about the first part that immediately leapt out to me. Right, I headlined it Well, I didn't choose the headline, I don't think, because it goes through an editor. But leaked email suggests relationship between Astralis and Refresh had broken down. Now, again, without getting into who I might have talked to, what I might know, what my sources have told me, I think it's pretty, like, reading between the lines, it says here that, right, the Astralis players have, as you all know, felt this meaning it is now time for us to separate on their social media streams, and I have no doubt that it has affected them since Miami. So after putting this story out, right, Nickel and Niam immediately jumped up on Twitter, piped up, and started arguing with me, saying, well, how have relationships broken down between us? Why would they sign until 2021? Well, I'll tell you, you little daft cunt, right? I have it on good authority that it was the agreement that, yes, we'll sign until 2021, but the separation has to happen. So that doesn't sound like they're happy campers and want things to continue the way that they are. Point one. Point two, that's your email. So maybe your grasp on the English language isn't great, but there's this thing called, where you can infer things from the sentence structure. You literally say, it's time for us to honor our commitment to separate ownership from them, and the Astralis players have felt this on their social media streams. Now, what he's trying to say that means...
That's the point. This is how you know he's full of shit. He didn't offer an alternative explanation. Say, well, by this, I meant actually something. No, that is literally meant to mean whatever he was just referring to as the main subject before. That's what they're feeling.
Exactly. Now, what he tried to say he meant was that, no, the players felt this from the community because the community were calling them out on social media. And that's what he means. It just doesn't hold up. I noticed people are complaining about.
Just change the server. It happens sometimes. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Scoots is there saying, that people are trolling. I believe him. Right. So anyway, so basically, like, why would that be a driving force between them? Like how they chose to negotiate contracts. Whole thing is absolutely ridiculous.
Also, right. Explain this. Because they've done it, by the way. The reason why I'm actually so adept at breaking down all Blast shit is because they have the same exact style as Riot, where they just keep thinking, but if I lie again, maybe this one will hold. And so one of the classic things Riot does is Riot also has never made a mistake, has never done anything wrong, has never corrected a mistake, has never actually improved anything because everything was already the best anyway. They just invented a new way, and that's how they improved it. Like, even when they have to go and take a step down, that's not a step down, that's a step back because, I have to reconsider. Like, it's always that level of double down, right? So what they did here, Blast, is to internal employees, they quite reasonably explained one of the reasons why, if you're Astralis, you might not want to be associated with Refresh anymore because everyone's literally made fun of you as Blastralis, and they talked about how you're skipping all the real events just for the Refresh events. Like, there's a very obvious reason why the Astralis players would now basically say, like, listen, it was great, but let's separate, right? Now, in an internal email, that's a very reasonable way to explain it. The problem is he wants to simultaneously have that be said internally, and then when it gets leaked, pretend that's not the reason why they're doing it. And actually, they were always going to do it all log anyway. This was always the plan, and now's the time. In which case, the obvious question to ask is, why even mention the part about the players? What would the relevance be? If you were always going to do it, it was always going to happen. Why would the players, A, mention it in negotiations? B, why would you mention the players? And C, it was always going to happen, right? This was always your plan.
The best part is...
You never mentioned this in the HLTV.org interview, again, earlier this year, where you were trying to make up for all this sort of shit. You didn't just say then, well, don't worry, in a few months we're going to separate from them anyway, so no problem. Because if I'd have heard that, that'd also be a reason why you wouldn't be worried.
So the funny thing is with all of this, right? If you look at that as well, you'll notice it says that they're basically separating their majority shareholder interest, their majority shareholder concern, which suggests they'll still be involved.
I'm guessing they have some equity forever on this.
Yeah, well, listen, this is where it gets fucking insane. So after this article went out, Nickel and Niam started arguing with me and literally said, I've got the tweets here, right? Considering their press release said they were going to separate, I think it's fair to characterize that Astralis are leaving Refresh. Is that reasonable?
Of course.
You? Right. I mean, I can't believe he's done this. because he's meant to be an intelligent man. I think literally when you are just given tens of millions of other people's money just to spend how you want, and it doesn't matter whether you get a win or a loss, people will just keep giving them to you as long as you have roughly a 50% batting average. This motherfucker is out of his mind. He's out of his mind because I said, well, Astralis obviously leaving Refresh because you said you're going to disseminate ownership and they're going to go over to control of a new investor. That says to me that they're leaving Refresh. He literally replied, publicly available tweet, they are not leaving. They just extended their contracts.
By the way, I'll add in an extra detail as well that logically implies. Well, if this was always agreed, Richard, and it was always the plan anyway, and they've just extended their contracts. Wait a minute, why would you extend a contract if you're going to sell the whole team? Or if you're going to extend the contract, but you're going to keep part of the equity, well, that makes perfect sense. You're right, Nicola and I am. If you're going to be a minority owner in the team, I see why you wanted them to extend their contracts now.
So he took umbrage with me saying that they were leaving. And then he did a follow-up tweet where I said, it seems fair to characterize them as leaving when you've literally put a press release out with HLTV where you left out crucial bits of information from this internal email quite purposefully. It seems accurate to say that they are leaving, right? But no. And then he put out this other tweet where he replied and he said, no, they are not leaving. We are splitting up the company. And as part of the making certain that all potential conflict of interest is gone, this also means that no one can hold shares in both companies. Either you're in Blast or you're in Astralis. So in other words, you are doing what everyone suspected you were going to do. And that is that you were going to retain some control over this team from people who, well, they've got nothing to do with the Blast. They've got nothing to do with the Blast, but they do work for Refresh that owns the Blast. What a fucking crock of shit. Again, they just try and hoodwink the company, the public every time this company. They just can't be honest. They just cannot do it.
Their hand on the cookie jar.
No, they can't.
They have to go for every time.
So they have literally said, this is Nicola Nyam who controls it all. He is literally just admitting, hey guys, you know that press release we put out where we said they were separating? We pretty much did it to just stop criticism. Actually, what will happen is there'll be no ties between the Blast and Astralis, but Refresh will continue to have some interest in both parties, which is the point. That's the conflict of interest, you crazy bastards. I can't even believe I'm having to explain this. I can't believe I'm having to explain, like, a parent company owning two things is just as bad. But, they don't get it. Like, it's just unbelievable. Yeah, and Jason in the chat puts it perfectly. He goes, I didn't leave my ex-wife. We just live in different places and fuck other people. Yeah, that's exactly how they're doing it. Now the story gets good, though, because Nicola Nyam is so demented. I'm going to give you an insight into his mind. Because I still follow him, like I have this reputation for being block happy. I only block you if you're a fucking pleb, like, and you've just got nothing worth me reading. If you're the kind of person who just spams me with garbage, like, listen, I don't need to know what you think because what you think doesn't matter to anyone, not even you, really. You're just basically taking up resources. That's all you are. You're an oxygen thief. If I block you, that's all you are. That's all you were. That's all you'll ever be. So, I have about 150, 200 people blocked now, despite this reputation. I've got thousands blocked, and I use block bots and all these other lies. But I had to block Nicola Nyam. He's mental. He's fully mental. He couldn't... so I followed him, and we've had DMs in the past when I used to bother asking them for comment. And he actually messaged me, right, when that story broke. And basically said, like, where was it? I'll read you. He said, I know we far from agree on most things, but I do respect that you put in an effort. So again, what he's done immediately is I'll pay you a backhanded compliment by talking down to you. This is pretty much his MO of every interaction we've ever had. And he said, I respect that effort, even if from my perspective, your conclusions are off. I know you think I'm arrogant for saying that. Anyhow, I'm happy to try and put things right if you ever want to do a podcast together. No worries if you don't.
P.S. Here he is, Nicola Nyholm patched into the call.
Yeah. P.S. I do listen to your talk shows and YouTube videos, and I often disagree with your conclusions, but you always dig up interesting information. So now he's trying to be respectful and humble. Same guy that emailed fucking E-League to have me fired, to have me disciplined, right? So I just said, sincerely, go fuck yourself, screenshot this, and remember it next time you think this door is open, you stupid prick, right? So, and I said, if you want to know why the door's closed, it was closed the minute you emailed E-League to have me punished and publicly called me a liar on multiple occasions. And he said, if you're talking about, so he goes, I never asked them to punish you, sigh. And I said, I saw the email. And I said, I'm paraphrasing here, but you said if a Refresh employee criticized you, we would punish them immediately. So what are you inferring with that statement? And he said, no, what I wrote was similar behavior towards E-League or anyone else in esports from an employee at Refresh would not be tolerated and we would take action.
This guy's amazing.
It's the same fucking thing. You prat. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. What is wrong with your fucking brain? It's the exact same thing with just different words. So I said, what do you mean by that?
It's amazing, isn't it?
He said, we would ask such employees to please go in depth and dialogue with the competitor they are accusing of wrongdoing.
Why is he so
He's just a fucking buzzword factory, this cunt. Right? And then I said, so why did you think E-League should listen to you? Why do you
I think Nicola Nyholm actually runs Snopes because he does do that thing of like, no, Hillary Clinton wasn't involved with.
Yeah, exactly. We give this a half truth.
There was just 2 people who went missing and another one we haven't found yet. It's like, get me out.
Right? So then he said, so I asked him, why do you think E-League should listen to you? Why do you think like E-League should, fucking punish the people you think or live up to the standards you apply to your company? I said, are you that demented and arrogant? And he said, I have no clue what you're trying to get at here. This is after he already said you might think I'm arrogant earlier in the conversation. I call him demented and arrogant and he goes, let's keep the tone a bit more clean. It's like, no, I'll talk to you however. So I literally said, I'll talk to you however I want, you fucking arrogant clown. And if you don't like it, get the fuck out my DMs. Like, I don't owe you anything. You need to earn any respect back that you pissed away, and you can't. So he kept messaging me, and my last words to him were, just fuck off, you weirdo. And I blocked him. What a weird cunt. Like, straight up. Like, imagine thinking you get to tell people how they can talk to you just because you've got a fucking nice suit and a fucking, bit of money or whatever. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. I get it that you're surrounded by sycophants who tell you your event's great. It's not. That tell you your conflict of interests are fine. They're not. I understand you live in that bubble. I'll never be part of that motherfucker. So why to tell me to talk to you civilly like you're my boss? Lick every fucking segment of my asshole, you fucking moron. Like that would ever happen. Trying to get me fired from one of the best jobs I ever fucking had. And then you rock up and go, now, Richard, keep it respectful. I wouldn't piss on you if you were on fucking fire, mate. What are you talking about? Fucking bellend. And I can't wait, by the way, because seriously, now you lit a fire under my fucking ass. I'm going to be taking a fucking long... Right, if you thought it was bad now, when we being up in all your shit, if you thought it was bad now, if you were trying to make peace now, fuck me, 2019 and 2020, when you start the next thing I'm going to talk about, this league, as you try and occupy more fucking space in an already crowded event, I will fucking melt your face off with the shit I will publish about you, you stupid prick. The absolute audacity of it. It's fucking mind-blowing. What, how about an apology? How about just an apology? And just leave it there and let me fucking percolate on it.
Here's what's brilliant as well. This is also, by the way, classic Riot Games type behavior, where again, the way these people are so delusional and so incredibly narcissistic that they're always in the right, they're always the one who knows what's going on, is even when they do the attempted olive branch like this, right? They never just come out and say, like, listen, I know you probably disagree with some of the things we've done. If I was a different person, maybe I'd agree. You know what? Maybe we've never have done things the wrong way. But you know what? In the future, I hope we could find a way to... No, what they always do is they always come with that angle, which is sort of like, listen, a lot of people think you're a complete piece of shit. I think you're all right, though. So here's the thing, right?
Cheers, mate.
It's like, why would you start on that as like the fucking... And to people who already like... It's like these guys don't even read Reddit. Like everyone's always saying that we have like mad thin skin, super sensitive and stuff. Probably just start with insults. Just come out the gate with insults. Couldn't possibly go wrong from there, could it?
I'll be in every fucking corporate document of every person who's even vaguely related to the blast, right? Because you're trying to pull the fucking wool over everyone's eyes, and you're trying to fucking pull the wool over my eyes, and you're trying to fucking gaslight me, right? Well, fuck that noise. It's ridiculous. let's talk about this league they want to start quickly, and then we'll get into the event. The idea that they're thinking about starting a league in 2020 on top of the Blast. Like, have you not fucking learned anything? Have you not learned anything?
And like I said before, so for this Blast LA, they just expanded the format and had semi-finals that were best of threes, approaching more like what you would see in a normal tournament, right? That's still it. They haven't yet even done a tournament that's as long as any of the big tournaments at the moment. Like, I think the only tournament that I could think is comparable in terms of games is ECS. And ECS is actually quite well known as one of the events that's fairly compact, They have actually shown, this is why it's mad, that obviously one of the reasons they've split up is also to try and get a major. Because these cons haven't shown they could run one ESL Cologne, never mind a whole fucking major 3 weeks long with minors and everything. Like, they haven't shown any of that yet. I'll give them credit for what they've done. They had a couple of events that were pretty good, but those were like 2-day events. They're going to roll a whole league after that. It's fucking hard running an LCS type thing. That's a big, big commitment. And you have to pull it all off. Otherwise, everyone's up your arsehole at that point in time. The one thing they've had going for them so far, Richard, and this is how you know they have inducements and deals with the teams, is none of the teams ever criticize them. The same teams that are like, mate, if Fallen sits down in a fucking ESL practice room, he breathes in, there's slightly off particles of nitrogen in the air, and immediately goes to Twitter and starts tweeting while Taco is taking off one of his 17 hats, trying to figure out what the rule for this event is. And then Coldzera is just like trying to fucking shimmy out of a window or something while Lerps looks away. Fucking hell. Oh, no. And then none of these guys to say a peep about this event. The only guy who said anything was Dennis, and that's because he'd already left Nip probably in his heart at that point in time and knew it was over. That's it, as far as I can tell. So imagine next year when everyone's in your league and it's the only thing. The joke of these guys, Richard, is they don't know that success would destroy them utterly. If they got what they wanted, a fully exclusive league where they ran the whole thing and Valve even gave them the nod, they'd fuck it up so hard, every player would complain all the time and all the fans would hate them. Like, the whole chat would just be like, blast LCS, blast my ass, some shit. It'd be actually success would ruin them. I almost wish they succeeded at this point. Like some mad Twilight Zone episode.
It's absolutely ridiculous. The fucking shout out to Glockster as well, by the way. Thanks for the 10 gifted subs. The reality is that if they do create a league and it's a separate project, it's just another fucking land grab, which has been part of the problem. It's like, listen, there is a way that the Blast can still win the PR war. It can still put on decent events. It can still have a space in the landscape. But you have to fucking scale it back, and you have to change your format, and you have to get some new ideas about how you're handling it. But instead, what you've decided to do is not only expand the Blast in 2020, but it sounds like you're even looking at a league. Now, whether that refers to, because Nicola and I, funnily enough, only wanted to talk about how the relationship hadn't broke down between him and Astralis, because that's the most important thing to him, because he wants to be seen as the player's savior. He's another fucking guy with a Jesus Christ complex. He wants to be Christ. Like, that was evident right from the fucking moment those leaked Skype logs came out where he was talking to Fallen and saying, me and you, we can run a players union and change the face of esports and all of this stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, literally, he's just out there.
I'm sure that was like the fucking speech that fucking Palpatine gave Vader to turn him over. Yeah. Together we can save them, Fallen.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's obvious what he's about.
Together we can keep Coldzera and MIBR.
what they're running now is exactly like what PEA did. So if the community don't react the same way, someone's up. I mean, they did better PR, obviously, on this. So anyway, if it's a league component of the Blast, and that's what they were talking to when they were having expanded events, we're still in the shit position we were in, which is the Blast is expanding in 2020, and there's not enough room at the inn, and someone's gonna have to go, right? And trust me, it'll be a dream hack. It'll be an organization that's been around a long time that simply can't afford to pay appearance fees.
Possibly Starladder. They're not in a great spot aside from the major. A lot rides on that, mate.
We're not going to get to that. So I look, if they are doing another league, and it's like, I'll call it now. If they are doing a league, it won't be online. It'll be another one of these turn up, play in person league types that we've got, like with ESL. It's gonna be disastrous for the fucking scene. And these people have proven time and time again they cannot wield their power responsibly. They have no interest in respecting the ecosystem, and they will just lie to you, the fans, lie to journalists, lie to everyone. They just non-stop lies. It's just like fucking Bill Clinton. They're just out of fucking control. Just straight, like, they don't even know what the truth is anymore. Like, imagine supposedly being the fucking head of a company and not realizing that, saying, no, Astralis aren't leaving. They just re-signed. Imagine saying that a fucking week after you released a press release that was deliberately designed to make people think Astralis and Refresh were parting ways. Like, imagine doing that.
I just love the way like Nicola Nyham lives his life as though he's like a fucking League of Legends champion, and he's like his ultimate is lie, and he goes, I'm in trouble here, but as long as I pull my ult, I'm out. And he pulls his ult and he goes, blowjob? She was mainly sucking my dick. It's like, get me out. Like, it's on that level, isn't it? Like his ultimate R is like semantic games, and he's like.
Oh no, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely
failed. No,
insane.
we have just merely not succeeded as much as we wanted to, and have been set back on our path to the ultimate success. It's like,
and again, I feel sorry for the Astralis players in all of this, because my understanding was they were like, look, we've got to get separated. We're getting crucified publicly because of this. We shouldn't have to deal with that. We'll sign until 2021 because it helps everybody financially, right? It helps us, helps you, brings investors in, makes sure we all get a piece, whatever. We'll do it, but publicly this has to be the messaging. And then Nicola Nyham goes and does that. It's unbelievable. Like, and the players are going to get all the shit.
I'm going to say, you know what? I shouldn't even say this because it's actually, in theory, going to make it harder for me to nail these fucks. But I know they're so arrogant they won't do it, so I don't mind saying it. If you're going to hire a PR department and you have a whole department called communications, maybe let those guys do the talking. Why are you doing the talking? You don't know the rules of PR. You're just a guy who runs a company. So, like, let the guy whose job it is literally to craft your brand and make sure you're always on message and all that shit. Let him handle it all. Tell him what you want him to say and have him say, now I say that because I know they're so arrogant they won't do it. They'll keep thinking, because that's the real problem here, Richard. You can confirm this, mate. It's the same as the classic example I always give, because it reminds me of it so much of that Pietro Fringhelli Weezer interview that he did at the press conference. Him and Ralph Rijkaard, right? Because the real problem is this. It's not even just that they said things that were a bit silly or that were easy to pick apart or transparent or sometimes even put their foot directly in it. The most disturbing part is that you just know when they walked away, in their mind they went, fucking nailed that, didn't I?
I know.
Like, no, you utterly failed it. Like, almost as bad as it could be. And they're like, fucking can't touch me. I'm just walking on water, moonwalking backwards across water. Like, yeah, I'm doing any of that. You didn't know none of that, mate.
It's fucking unreal, isn't it? Let's talk a little bit about the event then. Team Liquid won it, didn't drop a map.
Now they're the number one team of the world. Finally,
finally they're going to blast under the belt. But look, there's not really a lot to talk about event-wise because I think the format is just so silly. But there were a couple of things that did leap out to me. There's not really anything to say about Liquid. We know they're the best team in the world. If you think it's anyone else, you're just straight in fucking denial. They breezed through this tournament. Without any problems. NAF got the MVP again. It just underlines the strength and depth.
It also just wasn't like, let's face it, it wasn't a tournament, unfortunately. Actually, no fault of Blasts. It just so happens, unfortunately, that the top three teams in the world, they're not, only one of them's a Blast team, which is Team Liquid. Like, ENCE apparently is going to sign with them, I believe they said, but aren't at this event. Vitality obviously aren't involved with Blast anyway. So the real problem is, the real irony here is the one event you didn't want Astralis to miss was probably this fucking Blast, because I'd actually like to have seen those two teams play a match. So unfortunately, look at the teams they had now. Realistically, only NRG and FaZe were really going to test.
It was, I mean, it was a pretty, circumstantially, it was a weak field.
I'll say this though, Richard.
It wasn't when they originally booked it.
The idea you got those 6 teams for an event in LA and only got 280 people into the stadium is mental. Look at the 6 teams. Cloud9, Team Liquid, NRG. They're the top 3 NA teams. MIBR live in the region. Renegades play in the region. And FaZe Clan have some of the most famous players to ever play CSGO.
I know.
At this point in time, like, Did all the players' family just come out? Was there no actual fans there? What was this? 280 fans?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Crazy. And again, what they'll do is I called this on my live stream talking about it. They'll do the old footfall thing. Total visitors.
There we go.
That's how they'll roll.
Everyone goes in and out 7 times.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The turnstile ticked over 7,000 times. I mean, there'll be no way on God's green earth there was ever 7,000 people sniffing around. But they'll bolster the numbers. It'll somehow end up in the thousands. And they'll probably just massage the ever living shit out of the viewing numbers. I got a guy now, by the way, who breaks down viewing numbers to check how many people are how many accounts are just idle.
Oh, and by the way, I forgot this detail as well. I can't believe I forgot this. But let's be real. It's not like it was just the venue that caused them to only be able to do 280 people there as well. Because let's face it, we know they had the connection to get as many seats as they wanted.
Yeah. But yeah, so because I was looking at the Overwatch numbers for an article I'm working on. So I got a guy who's got this piece of software. It looks at how many people are in a stream and how many people are actually interacting and talking and stuff like that. There was just the viewers, it was a third of the viewers were just idle and not interacting in chat, which, for a CS:GO stream with no drops is kind of weird. So I'm not saying anything about that. But the viewership wasn't great either. I think that they're going to have to work very hard to dress up these numbers, very hard indeed. So yeah, quick little thought about Cloud9, because it was the first time we saw their new lineup play. A lot of people, it's kind of weird because a lot of people were talking about how it showed promise because they won a single map.
It beat FaZe.
But it was against FaZe. But it's a best of one. So, I don't know about that. The one thing I will say is what stood out for me as a positive was TenZ, because he's a young kid and, he's 15, 16. Question is, will he be able to hang at the highest level, because you see these kids who they're great online, but they don't adjust to the LAN environment and the team environment and the structure. Well, I thought TenZ played very well. Reminiscent of when Obo had kind of his breakout with Complexity, and just shows how much young talent there is in NA if it can be properly harnessed. But I'm not as excited. I also saw they did this thing where because they got a win and a draw at this event, they jumped up 281 places in the HLTV rankings. A lot of people were upset about that. Two thoughts on that are this: they should probably never have been that low anyway. They should probably never have been something like fucking 300th in the world. That's stupid. And people were upset saying, well, if other teams don't get invites, then I'm going to jump up. Agreed. But again, the Cloud9 were at a very artificially low position for the roster that they had because they just weren't active. And the last few rosters they then had completely crapped out at tournaments, and they didn't qualify to even get into the minors qualifiers and stuff like that. So, so I don't know. I'm still pretty ambivalent about this lineup. I'm going to wait and see. But I thought TenZ showed some promise, and that might be enough to make them a non-ordinary team. If they, because they've still got Automatic. Daps is an in-game leader that I respect. I always thought Mixwell was very harshly done by just the way things panned out at Optic. And Daps is the kind of in-game leader that can get the best out of Kusta, even though I always think Kusta's a fucking train wreck waiting to happen, But I don't know if you paid any attention to Cloud9.
I only watched a couple of the games. From what I saw, the main problem this team has is it actually reminds me a lot of the Mouse Sports team that Karrigan inherited. But the key distinction is, because the reason that I see a similarity is there was so many question marks across that team. Like Rops's form dropped off. Roxic, he never played in a real team before, really. Obviously you had Frozen's just some unknown guy in terms of the pro level. Will he make it? Will he fail? Similar in this sense. So the problem I have with this team is I think Mouse Sports got almost like the dream scenario. Almost every single one of those question marks turned out to be sort of like a tick. Like it worked out.
Yeah.
It worked as you hoped. The problem with Cloud9 is they have all these question marks. So you've got the angle of like TenZ is literally brand new to the pro level. Maybe it's too soon for him. You know, maybe he's a pro in 2 years and he's really good, but you had him for this year. Then you've got Mixwell, hasn't played at the top level for ages, has been off playing in Spain. Will he be a good player again? He had the odd moment here that looked good. It's his first tournament back, can't say too much. Obviously, you have Kuster being resurrected from the dead, seemingly just playing off in Ghost, no chance to play majors. So the problem is you've got, again, a lot of question marks. So listen, I think Daps is a very capable leader. We'll see how he goes about addressing them. He isn't Carrigan, though. So, like, the idea that you're going to get all the question marks in the ticks like Mouse Sports did, I don't really buy that myself. So for me, I do think the lineup itself has promise, and I think you can certainly build from it. Like you said, if you've got Daps, if you've got Automatic, if Mixwell, who we have seen in the past, be a good player, gets it together, even that's like a nice base to build from. Then if one of Kuster or TenZ shows high-level play, great. I'd probably guess at this point in time more likely TenZ. I think I've seen enough from Kuster. So, okay, even if it's just that, well, that means you're only one roster move away from a pretty decent lineup. So, it's to me, it's more like this lineup, probably not going to do it. Probably not going to be a top 10 team and have deep finishes and big wins. But I feel like this core, unlike the last few where there's been obvious problems that stop them from building, I feel like you can build from this core. I feel like it's got some decent pieces again so that you're only a couple of good moves and then you're right back in the mix again. You're right up with the NRGs of the world.
Yeah. So, you know, look, continuation for Liquid. I mean, FaZe made the final, but I mean, that's not really, you know, Neo is still terrible.
The one that's the killer was, I agree. I didn't think that FaZe themselves were that sick. I look at NRG and I'm like, Stanislaw, you're supposed to be delivering, mate. They didn't bring you in to lose to FaZe. Like in a tournament like this, you're supposed to be second. Let's be real, you know.
I mean, you know, what I was expecting when NRG brought in Stan, I was expecting the honeymoon period to immediately kick in.
Sure.
And Stan is in good form player-wise.
So.
Yeah, exactly. So it's disappointing that NRG really haven't delivered, and you're kind of in that hopeful place now where it's like, okay, well, maybe, you know, give it a month. But if they don't show some improvement really soon, like this might be actually a backward step overall from where they were at with Daps. So we're gonna have to wait and see. But yeah, I thought NRG really had to be sort of in the final for this because, you know, you look at FaZe. Again, no disrespect to Neo, obviously, for the career that he's had, but it needs to end. Like every game you turn up and play this poorly, you are really diminishing the overall impact of your legacy. I understand that you're meant to be an in-game leader now. I'm not seeing anything there that makes me think you're doing a good job at that. I think FaZe is struggling in games. It was almost like a layup to get to the final here, and as we said, they did lose a best of one to the new lineup, which they're the lineups you should be able to exploit as a veteran in-game leader. So Yanko, you know, well, we know Yanko obviously is having a lot more input now that Neo's in the team because the blast leaked his fucking comms.
Wasn't
in the
that
middle.
Amazing? By the way,
I know. Yeah.
I'll give you some insight on that as well.
Yeah,
like
please.
That's something where, as far as I know, just a few things I reached out about. No one was ever inquired about that or asked if it was the thing. I even heard that internally there was people who thought like maybe that's not even the right move to do. But for whatever reason, whoever makes the ultimate decisions decided this is a great fucking little. Again, they probably just did the same bullshit. It's intimate, unexpected. Oh, well, a unique aspect. You basically just hot mic'd someone during a tactical timeout or whatever in a scenario where, again, where was the player outrage? Explain that to me. The same players who I've explained earlier.
To be fair, Fallen did.
There was a couple people.
Yeah, there were a couple of tweets. You know, in that situation, it's like, listen, I think if there'll probably be a contract somewhere that the orgs have signed where it allows them to do this.
It's probably in the massive thing you scroll through, yeah.
And you know, from a TV perspective, I think it's fine, but it cannot be during the game. It simply cannot, because I have no idea if that broadcast was going out live as it was. I think it was. I think the people who were in the venue were watching the broadcast essentially. So that's a huge problem, especially with the sound issues that we had, because now you have just taken a fucking Strat. that was going to be in a live game and put it out into a fucking stadium where people can hear it, including the other team and the other coach of the other team. So that's really bad. If it was just going out at home, there's still a way that information could be relayed with all the fuckery that goes on at a LAN. So it's still not ideal, but I have less of a problem with it. And if it was done after the fact, if it was like, well, let's take a look at what Yanko did in the timeout as part of a post-game segment, then nobody should cry about that. So that's my opinion on it. But I think the way it was handled was really, really bad, especially as clearly nobody knew it was going to happen. Nobody agreed to it. Nobody from production said, by the way, coaches, you're going to be there. So, yeah, they effectively got hot mic'd. I mean, wasn't the first hot mic
by the way,
of the event because I had to hear Jordan say he needed a piss.
That's true. One thing I wanted to ask about actually was the segment that they did with this, was it, I saw the segment, but was it live though? Or was it something that had just happened a few minutes earlier?
It was literally the timeout. I can't remember if it was live or just after.
Like, is there anyone in the chat who knows like which?
But regardless,
switching the camera. No, but I mean, in my sense, I also wonder, like, if there was no delay, I'd also be concerned about that. You don't, especially some of the teams who are from other countries that don't speak English. Some of them would say some wild shit that could get fucking hot mic'd.
So there you go. It was just after, but during the half time.
Okay.
So in other words, it's not as bad, but there's still an opportunity for that information to get relayed to the team. So I think we do need to come to a compromise about how we do handle broadcasts, because they're very dry and more people want to see behind the veil. And it's very common in sports that, listen, if someone's doing a huddle, someone sticks a camera in.
Sure.
What are they saying? And if they hear bad language, they just apologize and we just get on with it. Sure. But the whole point is you have that level of insight. What's Tom Brady going to say in the huddle? What's going to happen here? But the difference there is, from sports to esports, there is no way that information gets fucking beamed out to the opponents on the field. That's the problem. So for me, poorly handled, not really a surprise. But anyway, just not feeling FaZe with Neo. I think he's too much of a weak link. When you consider the overall drop-off and some of the other stars, they just can't get away with it. It's putting too much pressure on Rain and Nico and Guardian, really. But I mean, to like suddenly find these like unbelievable level of performances, it's just not going to work. So
here's the thing. I know no one wants to hear this. No one, especially not people in FaZe. It's time to break the whole FaZe team up. And you know what? I'd even go harsh. I'd say something like, you know what? Obviously, we're keeping Nico because that goes without saying. He's the crown jewel of the piece. He's still good. But I would even say we're keeping Nico and one other player, max. You can pick who it is if you want Nico, but no other motherfucker stay. Maybe Yanko stays as coach. That's about it. Because at this point in time, what was it? Just Carrigan's fault, was it? Was it Adren's fault? Was it Neil's fault? It can't be what it looks like. No one can play with you motherfuckers. That's not my fault.
You saw the Rain interview. You saw the Rain interview.
Mate, that nails exactly what we speculated on earlier. Where we said, who do you think it was who kicked him out? I told you it wouldn't be Rain. Because think about it, Rain was fucking, metaphorically, he was nobody before Carrigan. He was just a good player. That was it. After Carrigan, he was a champion. Guys should be winning every tournament. Like, a guy like that doesn't just overlook that and go, well, you did have those few bad months at the end. Like, no, someone like him, basically, it was always going to be the case unless FaZe did just go right back to the top. He was always going to second guess that move. But I've no doubt in the moment you had to do it.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I think, it's a project that's really ran its course. And I agree. I think it's time for some radical changes. Olaf back to Sweden. Maybe Guardian retires. Maybe he has one last hurrah on one of these CIS teams or something. Nico, you can build around him. Like Nico and Rain as a duo, you can build around.
Honestly, sure. And also, by the way, maybe that's even the way it gets done in a way that doesn't have to be nasty. Is, let's face it, the people they're removing are people who have no business being in this fucking team right now. Like Olaf, Meister, and Neo shouldn't even be there. They're only there because their names are Olaf and Neo. That's it. Nothing they're doing in the server, just because they have the names Olaf, Meister, and Neo. Now, Guardian, listen, mate, as far as I can tell, Guardian's one of these people might be able to play forever. But he has also himself constantly said he wants to retire and he wants to move away, and it's his last team. He wants to transition away, and he's getting older and he's married. You know, it's like he's still sown the seeds for that himself. So at least a couple of these people, even if you outright have to tell them, listen, when the contract runs out, we're just not going to re-sign it. I don't think it's unfair at this point in time. There doesn't have to be any bad blood. You can do it all in an amicable way, I think.
Mm. So let's get into the other big talking point that was going on this week, because there's just been so much CS going on. You know, we've hit that period at the in the middle of the summer where it's just fucking events everywhere. But this generated a lot of controversy, and I wonder if we're going to hold the same opinion on this. It'll be interesting because we haven't talked about it, obviously. It was Vitality. They came out of ESL One Cologne, and they had a commitment where they had to go to the ESEA Global Challenge, right? Because they had to play through, so they could get their spot in ESEA, the higher up league next season. And basically, it started out where they were playing teams that sort of weren't really in the same caliber as them. And I was watching clips like RPK was AWPing, and they were battering Team Spirit. There was a great clip where fucking some player fucking lost his shit because fucking Ziwu just fucking peeked around and fucking 1D'd him. And he was trying to make out that it was like some bullshit. But of course, this kid's fucking nutty as fuck. And he's doing it a LAN all the time. And I thought it was funny because I think they only play with that eye disbalance guy, but whatever. Irrelevant. And everyone was having a good laugh, saying, look, man, look at Team Vitality wrecking these teams, not trying hard, having some fun. It's really good to see. Look at them going for knives. Da, 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 da. And there was a few people who were a little bit upset by it. But then they went into a win with Furia. Sorry, a match with Furia. And they had to win it to progress in the tournament. But by that point, they'd done enough to secure their spot for next season. And they continued to fuck around. And Furia, who really need to take wins against high-level opposition, because they've had a bit of a rough time lately, they were fucking around slightly less. Let's put it that way. And Vitality got beat, and everybody came out and said, I mean, there was a spectrum of argumentation. The first was that it was match fixing at the extreme end because they didn't try in a game, so they effectively threw it.
Okay.
At the other end, it was really unprofessional and disrespectful to the league. Now, what I would have done if I was in Team Vitality's shoes is I would have said nothing. But MBK came out and basically said, listen, we weren't allowed to forfeit this tournament or we would have lost our EPL slot as well. So you double up, you lose the SEA again, which is the only reason they were in this mess, from having to come through and play their way through the ranks against clearly inferior opposition. But they would have lost their EPL slot, which obviously is a really big deal. So they had to turn up and honor it. So he said, it's a sad situation, but now we are fully focused on the IEM Chicago, which was just a few days later. And, you've had ESL One Cologne and IEM Chicago in very close proximity. And they had this online, they had this other LAN commitment in the middle. And he said, anyway, we will give it our all there, fully focused and ready to play our best CS. So obviously the community lost their shit. And I don't know. I'll get your opinions first. What did you make of all of this?
Yeah, the main problem with this whole scenario, I have to say, it starts out with the way that ESL has structured Pro League and Mountain Dew League / ESEA Premier, basically, or whatever the fuck they call that league. Because the real problem is, everyone knows this, and we all learned it because of the story of Virtus Pro, didn't we? Because there was years and years where you kept thinking, right, finally, Virtus Pro's out of Pro League, but magically they'd get back in. And obviously then later, as Pro League became essentially full, you had all these new teams come along, like the Ences of the world, and they all had to start out in the Premier Mountain Dew League thingamajig to get them way into Pro League. So basically, the problem is this: not every season of Premier or Mountain Dew League counts to get you into Pro League. So then you have teams that skip it, or then they wait for the one that can get you in. And the problem here was that they didn't make the tournament all one thing, because this finals obviously takes place between EU and NA. So the problem is, 2 days earlier, Vitality had already won the match that got them a Pro League spot. So as they say, they basically are the equivalent of the fucking Marshawn Lynch interview where he turns up to the press conference and says, I'm just here not so I don't get fined. That's what them appearing about the Juland was.
Yeah.
They basically were just saying, listen, we didn't outright throw the game. We didn't try and lose every round, but we didn't try. You know, when we lost to Fury, it doesn't, you know, I want people to know in a way, wink, does it count though? Hadn't I already qualified? Well, here's the problem I have with that is as a person, I don't like it. I feel like every tournament you play in, you should at least try. Now, listen, in this scenario, if you tried your hardest, lost anyway to a team that, by the way, you have lost to before. You lost to DreamHack Masters Dallas. It's not like it's impossible to lose to Furia. If you then lose to them and you say in an interview, listen, I tried, but you know what? I had already qualified for Pro League. I've had a very busy tournament circuit. And so I don't know if my head was at 100%. I don't know if in the game I was fully focused. You know, maybe I was fucking around a bit, but I did try. That's fine. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Like I say, I would try personally. I'll also say I do not think you should be punished because I think actually as soon as you get into the murky territory of trying to decide in a normal, vaguely normal game, like if someone was actually throwing or not, well, now you're going to get into all sorts of scenarios where I'm saying this in purely good faith. How are you then going to tell me when JW mains a fucking shotgun in 2015 that was fine? What is that not throwing the game? To play a gun that's not a meta gun or viable for most players? No. See what I mean? It's very so the problem I have is you can't really know in most cases when someone's throwing just by watching the game. You can tell if they're dicking around a bit, but people dick around in real games. I mean, logically, Simple threw a fucking game with a knife at ESL Cologne. Like, what is it? Was he trying his hardest? No, if he'd used a gun and shot the guy, would instantly have won the whole game. So the point there is, like, I don't really like it. And I personally don't think as competitors, especially not legendary competitors like MBK, I don't think you should be doing that, mate. Just play the fucking game properly. But I also do think you shouldn't really be punished. Like, unfortunately, this is just a circumstance where someone created a scenario where you're not that incentivized, really. So I can't fully I can't say it's Vitality's fault entirely.
So there's a little bit of additional context here, just so people understand how long the season has been. They had to play 17 online best of one, and then they had to play 2 best of threes, and then the best of 3 they lost in Dallas. So that is a fucking lot. And the fact they had to do it in Dallas when you know this is ostensibly a European component of ESEA. And it's only $25,000 for the winner. So listen, I'm not saying that, you know, that's to be fucking sniffed at, but when you're regularly competing in tournaments where you walk away with 125 grand, 25 grand doesn't have the same allure. Now, that being said, that's just to contextualize it. My opinion is this, like any format that it's sort of there's or any circuit where there's an inducement to lose, you generally place the blame on that. But there's a much bigger picture here that Vitality really you got to start getting savvy of. All CS:GO pros have. We now have betting sponsors. We now have esports betting. It's only going to expand as the laws in America change. And the big picture awareness here is if you go in knowing ahead of time that you're going to not try, and maybe you've said that to 1 or 2 people, maybe you've told 1 or 2 friends, maybe some people in the know who just happen to know you and aren't directly linked to CSGO know you're going to do that, they can go out now and make a killing by betting on the underdog. And now you have created, not match fixing, but you have created a type of financial corruption within gambling that's very, very serious. And in a real sport, this would be investigated and suspensions would probably be handed out. That's just the reality. Now, I understand a lot of people who were upset at Vitality probably were salty little bettors, you know. I went on an illegal Chinese skin site and you've just cost me a fucking, I don't even know the name of skins, fuck them. You just cost me a Karambit fade. Like, fuck that, right? I mean, you know, I've got no truck with those people. But the reality is the fact they made it so obvious they weren't trying. It's like, if you're not going to try, just dress it up a little bit. Just play it 70%. We all know you got the capacity to do it. You have a close series with Furia, which you lose. And you go, bloody hell, great game. We were a little bit tired, but the plus side is we get to go and focus on Chicago. No, instead, you release a tweet that unequivocally says, yeah, we were fucking around because we'd already qualified, so who gives a fuck? And Chicago is more important to us. So that denigrates the entire league. It denigrates your opponents. It creates a gambling problem.
I forgot to mention one thing as well. The reason why I can't remember if I forgot this because this was the key reason why people were so upset is remember the difference is Furia had their coach standing in
Yeah.
That was the key thing. So obviously they weren't supposed to win.
So the odds were massively in Vitality's favor.
Yeah,
the odds were massively.
That's the part I forgot to add, because that part does make it look really bad, like you threw the game. Because let's be real, if you had a gun to Vitality's head and you said beat a team that you've gone back and forth with, but they have their coach playing, and you die if you don't win, you think they play that way? I don't think so. Somehow.
Yeah. So the fact that they came out and basically admitted that they weren't trying is really, really bad. And
which is also what players can never stop themselves from doing.
No,
they always have to do this because they've got such big egos they can't handle.
Yeah.
Like here's the thing: NBK, you could have done every single thing you just did, and as long as you don't make the comment at the end implying you're through, you get away with it, mate. But you had to say it so that people wouldn't believe they really beat you, didn't you? Well, that's the problem. You can't have it both ways, mate. You have to pick one.
Yeah, and look, this is my take on it. I think all the people calling for Valve to issue some sort of punitive measures are just fucking out of their mind, because the reason that iBuyPower got banned, which is what everyone goes back to, the reason they got banned is they fixed an outcome of a meaningless game and bet on it themselves.
Exactly.
And if there was any evidence of Vitality doing that, absolutely, it would have to be a lifetime ban. But they didn't place bets. Now you can argue, if there was ever any proof that they communicated with friends and said, listen, bet on Furia for this game, they need maybe not a lifetime ban, but they do need a serious ban for that. But again, there's no evidence, or you can't even infer that they did that. So the only people who should be taking any action against Vitality are ESEA. And if I was them, I absolutely would. Because the precedent it sets to have people play in your league, not try, fuck around, and you understand the water gets murky because they were fucking around all tournament, but they were fucking around and winning. Now, this could have been nipped in the bud if an admin or someone from ESEA had said, listen, we understand that you're having fun. We understand you're letting off some steam privately between us. We know you won your games. Please don't do that as the tournament proceeds. Again, this could have all been handled in a much more professional way. No one did it because no one gives a fuck until we're sat in a fucking scandal. But the reality is, if I was ESEA, I absolutely would, for the integrity of the league, take some punitive measures. Now, what that looks like, I don't know. Maybe you kick them out altogether and make them go through the process again. Maybe you dock them some points at the start of the season, making it impossible for them to win. I don't know what it would be. But if I was ESEA, I'd absolutely issue a punishment. And again, classic ESEA, they haven't said a fucking word. I don't know if you agree about that, but I definitely would punish them.
I would say like a ESEA/ESL should, yeah, because like the real problem here is they did make a mockery of the tournament itself. That's the real issue here. And the difference is, and the distinction I'll make again, is like I say, if they didn't admit it themselves, you can just argue we had a bad game. What, am I allowed to have a bad game? Is Zewu not allowed to just have an off match? Am I not allowed to just buy a shotgun? Of course I am. But when you make it blatant by saying, well, like basically, like, why should I care? It's like, no, that isn't the defense, mate. That isn't the defense you want to be going with. Because, yeah, as you say, like this isn't just one LAN. This tournament is a side corollary of the process to get to Pro League, which you wanted. You're the ones that have been crying about no invites. We're not in the... Well, guess what? You have to work your way through it like everyone else does. So if you've already done 90, like that's the part I don't get, really. The part I can't sympathize with the players on is where they do that angle. I saw the HLTV.org guy was trying to do that. Like they played 19 best of ones online and then 17 online. Then just play 2 more, for fuck's sake. Do 2 more and finish it.
Yeah.
Well, that makes less sense. Like, imagine me saying that. Oh, but I just spent fucking months doing this project. So when I fucked it all up at the end and ruined it for everyone, why is that a problem suddenly? It's like, you've just answered your own question, haven't you? If this was a one-day tournament, I'd get it if you just go, whatever, we qualified anyway. So that's the problem. I agree. The person who should punish them shouldn't be Valve. I don't even think their team should punish them. I think it probably should just be ESEA, just to set the precedent that like teams can't do this every time. Because there's going to be more examples like this where you get a team that's a brand new org, therefore they don't have a slot in a league, but they end up getting one of the best teams in the world, and some Vitality have both done it, and they're going to have to go through this process. So imagine everyone just dicks around and makes a mockery of the finals. What's the point? Like, what about the team? Here's the thing you need to think about Vitality. And seriously, if you're listening, just think about this one fact alone. Ignore all the rest if you want. Think about this. there's a team that you beat out for a spot at this LAN that fucking wants that money, mate. That would kill for that money. And you fuck them out of that money by taking their spot. And then basically, you almost have match fixed. You've almost just given Furia the fucking prize money that other team might have gone ham and try and beaten them for. Like, that's the angle I'd say if you're MBK and the rest of them. It's like, look what you're doing to your fellow players, mate. Come on. Respect
but not just your fellow players. As I said, the bigger picture here, this is what I mean about pros. Like, a lot of people listen to pros, and it's like, you have to understand how dialed in they are on their own shit and not on anything else.
Oh,
right?
Of course.
Here's all the negatives that come out of fucking around in a tournament to that degree where it's that obvious, and then you come out and say, hey, everyone, we were just fucking around. We'd rather win Chicago. So first of all, like you say, great point. There's another team who would have really, really tried hard. Would have loved the chance to have played Furia. Would have loved the chance to have maybe made the final. Maybe win $25,000. Like, think
Could
about
be a big deal for those guys.
Yeah, think about guys
level.
like Windigo or whatever. You know what I mean? Like when they went out to China and they won all that money. It's life changing. It's life changing. So you have that. Then you've got obviously ESEA's league itself. Well, they have sponsors. And let me tell you, when your league is considered so much a joke that people aren't trying in it because it's irrelevant, because the prize money isn't as big as other ones, or you'd rather go and play in another tournament and you publicly say so, you definitely hurt that tournament getting sponsors next time around. Sponsors, because you have calls when you're league ops and sponsors when you run in a league, and they say, well, why was that game shit? Why is all this controversy? Why is no one talking about the positives of a sponsor in that league? And instead, everyone's all the activations we did or the segments we did. Why is everyone talking about match fixing going on? Yeah, we'll pass for next season.
There's a world where you might have fucked the whole season in the sponsors. Yeah. I didn't thought that one, but it's
totally
accurate.
Yeah, totally. I know that from doing what I do. So the reality is that MBK, like, sure, you get to focus on Chicago, but you fucked over so many other people to basically get out of a tournament 2 best of 3s earlier than you potentially could have done. And again, you just made it too obvious, and then came out and basically doubled down and said it was okay. So if I'm ESEA, I literally would. I think you have to, in good conscience, take some punitive measures against them. I don't know what it is. I don't know how serious you want to make it. I think kicking them out of the league is on the table, frankly. But I think more likely you either make it so they have to forfeit any prize money they win, or you take away their. You give them like a -12 point starting, which would make it nigh on impossible for them to win, or something like that.
Okay.
But I think they have to take action. You can't let that be the norm.
Oh, I agree.
For your league.
I definitely agree on that angle in terms of the TO of this specific tournament. Yeah, they've made
and just to wrap it up, the other thing people forget, iBuyPower would never have been banned by Valve if they had just taken the CEVO punishment and basically not denied that they threw the game. Always remember that. That I wouldn't even have pushed Valve as hard as I did if they just come out and publicly admitted it instead of lying and trying to gaslight me and say I was wrong. If iBuyPower had just said, yeah, we fixed that match, they would have took the slap on the wrist. That would have been the end of it. And literally, this has been said many times over. I know this. Valve obviously didn't want to get involved. But when the evidence was irrefutable after a 6-month investigation, they had to ban them. Now, if they just took it, if they just took it on the wrist from CEVO, we would never have got to a point where Valve were involved, because I would never have kept pushing. I would never have got the phone. I would never have got the text messages. I would never have got the pathways to where all the bets were placed, because we would have stopped the investigation, because there would have been nothing to investigate, because they would have admitted it. It's one of the worst decisions in Counter-Strike history. You could have been banned for 2 years from CEVO and maybe ESEA as well, or banned for life from the majors and any Valve tournament, and everyone else following suit because they're terrified. So if ESEA do issue a punishment here, take it quietly, Vitality. Don't speak up. So anyway, the other thing,
I can't imagine that a French CSGO team's going to do that, though, I'm afraid, Richard. And I have to say, there's the angle, actually, just to wrap it all up, that's probably the most disappointing about that whole topic, is you can't ever have a rational discussion when you're talking about any of the top teams or players in the world. There are people in this world whose brain works like this, but Ziwu is the best player, therefore whatever he did must be in the right. It's like there are actually people like that in the world.
Oh, I know. That's crazy.
So I've no doubt if ESEA punishes them, like you're saying, maybe even the league spot, sadly, ESEA will be the one that gets fucking wrecked by the community, even though I wouldn't blame them. Sure, it'd be harsh, but I could see the precedent for it being set.
So let's talk about Star Ladder. We got about 30 minutes left, 30, 40 minutes left. Let's get into Star Ladder. Obviously, Star Ladder hosting the major in Berlin hasn't got off to an auspicious start, let's say. Obviously, we're not going to talk about the minors. We'll talk about that when they're over. So next week sometime. We're not going to talk about IEM Chicago on the show. We'll wait until it's over. So we'll talk about that next week sometime. But there's been a lot of news coming out around the Star Ladder major in Berlin, which it is reminiscent of what happened with the whole Face It situation in London. So let's just start with the news that DK put out. You know, you made a tweet the day before this came out where you said you'll never work, you don't think you'll ever work another major again, but you're proud to have worked 6, you know, and that's that. And obviously you've been out of the major loop for some time for a variety of reasons. I think is that you've missed the last 3 or 4?
4. The last one I did was E-League Atlanta.
Right. So obviously,
and to be fair, 2 of those were in Poland.
Yeah. So I was just
and
going to say,
one of them I was actually invited to, but again, it was in Poland, so I did not accept that invitation.
Yeah, exactly. So the ones in Poland don't count. You can go look up why. E-League don't but when we no, it's because you said no
Boston.
to the. It's because it's because you said no for the Clash for Cash or something,
yes,
right?
They, for whatever reason, that just turned them off. So whatever.
Yeah, and then obviously Face It London.
Yes, which goes without saying.
Yeah,
Face It, bunch of cunts, chickens and eggs, all that.
Yeah.
You know the rest.
Yeah.
Was it the chicken or the egg first? Who knows? Just know that it was
unlimited speculation about them.
Exactly.
So anyway, I mean, listen, I think they're all like people have crafted this theory that Thorin doesn't get invited to the majors. First of all, not true, because they even still try and get him to go with the ones in Poland, which should be absolutely.
What plebs will never realize is every 6 months I have people from big orgs basically say something like, "Is there no way I could get you to an event in Brazil?" People ask me these things still. Years later, even when I've told them a million times, no, not interested. It's not something I need to. So I'm just putting that out there for people who really believe that. It's like, no, you can never get invited to it. It's like, all right, mate, whatever you.
And just so people know, because we are going to go into Star Ladder here, and people are going to say, oh, this is what you guys always do. You always go after the organizations that don't invite you. Well, for whatever reason, and we'll talk about it, they didn't invite Thorin, but they did reach out to me. So this isn't one of those times. So it's just that because I'm between jobs, I couldn't. I couldn't travel. And I told him I'm not doing events anyway. But maybe, maybe we do the minors together, and maybe we do the majors. But I just put it down. I just stopped the discussion because it was super nice of them to reach out. I always like that I'm being thought of. But the reality is I've said I won't do events again unless I control the events because it's too dangerous to do events. And I'm not getting killed by some fucking idiot who didn't like a tweet. People can say that's fucking paranoid or whatever. It's a matter of time before it happens to someone in esports. And it ain't going to fucking be me, right? I like having my opinions. Thank you very much. So I'm not going to calm down. And I also like existing, so I'm not going to go to events. So that's just how it works. So anyway, I'm going to criticize them, and it has absolutely nothing to do with me having any negative personal relationship with them. Star Ladder have reached out to me to do events on a number of occasions prior to this. I've turned them down every time. I think they're a good company. I think they've done lots of good work, but I think we're already off to a bad start with the major. So let's talk about why. So first of all, it seems incredible to me that with your relationship at Star Series and Star Ladder, where you've always been very glowing about them, despite stuff going on behind the scenes, that I know about, where you've had arguments with certain members of staff quite publicly on Twitter. Some of them, it always seems to have got smoothed out, and they've always made good use of your talents, and they've always included you in the events. So for them to not use you at a major, I think it took a lot of people by surprise, because when it was announced they got it, everyone said, wow, Duncan's going back to a major. You saw all the threads on Reddit. Duncan's going to be back. So in your perception, like, why would they? And again, listen, there's another part to this just before I get your thoughts, and that is that I absolutely have to respect a tournament organizer's choice to work with whoever they want, but it must always be justified, and it cannot be petty politics, and it should be about broadcast first, community first, because it's the major. It's meant to be a celebration of CSGO. So all the criticism we had to face it, you can pick who you want, but when you're paying a chicken more than you're paying your analysts, yeah, I'm going to criticize you. When you're bringing in someone who's never analyzed an event before, straight to the majors, and you were not going to use Sponge until we fucking started beating the drum about it, yeah, I'm going to criticize you, because that doesn't serve the community. It doesn't serve Counter-Strike. It doesn't serve your broadcast. It's not about me and Duncan. That's the reality. Like, I love this fucking game, and the majors should be something special. And I think if you do anything to make them not special and you cannot justify it, you deserve criticism for that. So anyway, what's the fucking story? Like, why the fuck are you not at an event that should have been a shoe-in for you?
Well, the interesting part of the story is this. This entire thing only happened because of me, basically. Because what happened was, over the last 2 months, every time I see or talk to people who are top talent, they always say, so are you doing the major then? Like, have you had your negotiation? And I always tell them, like, no, I actually haven't heard at all from StarLadder about the major at any point ever. All I'd ever heard was before they got the major, the concept that, like, we're making a pitch for a major and we hope we get it, etc. And then what happened was, the reason why all those other talent are saying that to me is because they're in negotiations with them, or they've already talked to them, or they've already even locked in for the major. So when I then hear that some other people in the talent crew who are big names, you've already seen a couple right there, aren't doing the major, I thought to myself, I should probably find out, actually, because like a lot of other people, I had assumed they were probably just going to hire me, because I think I've worked the last 3 or 4 StarLadders in a row. I would also even throw in, even though this is a side issue, I have obviously literally suggested them as someone who should get a major, citing the fact that they were always in CSGO since the very beginning, and they supported a region which no one else did initially in the CIS region. I also thought CIS region itself in some contexts was due a major, even though unfortunately because of the political situation in Ukraine, they didn't get one. It's in Berlin this time. But in spirit, it's sort of like a CIS major because it's a CIS company that gets to do it, etc.
Sure, yeah.
So to me, I also thought, of all the majors I've worked, this has got to be another one that's pretty likely they're going to hire me, right? So I personally assumed, right, well, the fact that they haven't reached out to me also makes it seem likely, right? What they've done is they've thought the same thing, right? Well, Thorin's worked with us at all the other events. He always says yes. He always agrees to the rates that we discuss. He's never someone who's pushed back or anything. So, what we're going to do is we're setting the other pieces up, and we're going to ask him last, and he's going to say, yes, it's going to complete the talent list, right? But what happened was, when I reached out to them, and literally didn't say any of that. All I said is, I just said, do you have any plans to use me for this major? And what they basically said was, no, the talent lineup is set. We don't have any plans at this time to use you. And that's it. Or I'll throw in as well, they basically also said something to the effect of like, but don't worry, there'll be StarLadders after the major and we'd be glad to see you there. Now, first of all, if you have any clue of like the concept of reading the room, you'd never add that last part like that. No, that's like saying like, I'm not interested in using you for world championships. When I have a smaller event that other tier 1 talent don't say yes to, I'll be happy to use you.
On top of that, what they're doing there is they go, and just before you think about shouting at us now and getting upset with us, remember we control another like 10% of your work potentially next year.
Oh, so that as well.
Temper. That's what that is. Sure. That's the psychological tool. We don't want any. We've told you something contentious, and we don't want any conflict. So just remember, we still going to write you a check for a few tens of thousands of dollars next year. So be careful.
Now, there's 2 other parts to this. One is that even just from that all coming out in my tweet, they already have been trying to tell me like, but we didn't necessarily say it was entirely set. It's like, listen, mate, unless you offer me a spot, shut the fuck up. Like, what is this? What, now you're just going to keep telling, is this Nicola Nyholm's sock puppet account? And now you're going to tell me for the next 3 weeks. I haven't technically said you haven't. Just because I haven't given you a spot doesn't mean I haven't not given you a spot. And at the very end, so you give me a spot? Nah, I was never giving you a spot. It's like, what's the purpose of this? Like, also, as I alluded to before, think about who you're dealing with. Like, I am actually not as unreasonable as people think, but I'm certainly not someone to be fucked around with. So, like, if you are not
you are just the esports Rorschach.
If you are not going to hire me, stop emailing me about whether or not you're hiring me. I don't want to hear anything else about this except we would like to hire you. If you don't, stop messaging me. Because then the second component is this. I am normally not someone who invokes You can attest to this, Richard. I'm not someone who actually believes in business. Things like loyalty and all that is that big a deal. I think a lot of that is just people use it as it's a tool that you use socially to advance yourself where financially you can't. So you can't make the guy work for you and do what you want. So what you do is you say, well, I've worked here for a lot of years, shouldn't you really do it anyway out of loyalty, And that's why I despise the way loyalty is applied in esports, because it's only ever big companies demanding loyalty of individuals. Then those big companies can turn around and they can piss all right in the face of the individual and say, well, why do I have to be loyal? I don't have a contract with you. Yeah. Where's the law say I have to do this? So what I'll say is this. The reason why I'm going to invoke the concept of loyalty and the fact that I did do all of those Star Series, by the way, any fan out there, go and look up the last 3 or 4 Star Series events and look how many of the tier 1 talent are missing. And you know how many of those fucking tier 1 talent told me every time I said to them, are you doing the next Star Series? Of course I'm not. Why the fuck would I do Star Series? There's tons of other events pay as much as them. And I don't want, they're not going to have the top teams at all of it. Astralis isn't going. How many of them told me, they literally told me, StarLadders in the past, mate, with what happened with them losing Twitch, they're probably going to go out of business soon anyway. That's what the tier 1 talent that are going to be hired to these motherfucking events think about your tournament. So
what was that about them losing Twitch? What was that?
Apparently, they're one of the companies that used to get paid something by Twitch or have a deal with Twitch and somewhere.
They had a retainer anymore.
Something like that. And I believe they no longer get
I didn't know that, actually. It's funny. So, I guess I'm not on the freelance circuit. Nobody told me that.
So as far as I know, they might be in some sort of financial trouble there because presumably you have to make up the money you lost that you were getting in that sense. So that's one of the reasons why, sadly, I even used to tell those talent, but they're a tournament that's a prestigious tournament. They've been around a long time. They mean something to the scene. So as long as there's good teams, go anyway and support it as a talent, right? But whatever, they made their own business. So the point is, as far as loyalty goes, no talent has shown more loyalty to StarLadder of tier 1 talent than me. I would agree. The people who've come up through StarLadder probably have done more. Harry, those guys, they've probably done more overall. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I am so fucking sick and tired of Russian businessmen telling me to my face that I am not respectful and loyal to them, and they never show respect or loyalty to me in any context. I'm sick and tired of it. What they are is they're just fucking plastic gangsters where they want respect from you because that would benefit them. So they lie and pretend that they have a personal relationship with you. When it actually comes down to brass tacks and displaying that personal relationship, you get absolutely fucking out from them. And unless you've got a contract or a literal agreement, you are nothing to them. You are nobody. So as a result, fuck them. I don't care. And you know what? Don't bother inviting me to the next StarLadders, because here's the part you haven't thought of. In your own Blast-esque stupid hubris, you've just admitted that your normal StarLadders are not good events because you can't get all the talent you'd like to have at them. You have to hire shitters like me to come and be the main talent. You have basically admitted it's only when Valve gives you the money for a major you can put on an actual tier 1 event. So there we go. You've admitted yourself you're tier 2. You know what? I'm not interested in doing tier 2 events. So no thanks, but no thanks. Peace.
All right. I mean, look, it then spills over, right? Like, if you're not there, I mean, first of all, I'll just add that this fucking conspiracy theory that people craft on Reddit about Valve getting involved, no, they don't. That's a fact. Valve never talked about any talent hires ever in CSGO. It's at the behest of the tournament organizer. The other thing is that, but
Valve haven't even removed people for literally making racist jokes and comments. Do you imagine they're going to start saying who they can hire? Come on.
Yeah. Even in Dota, the Too Good incident is notable by its uniqueness.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of things that went on there. Valve generally do not care. So, the idea that you, because in 2014 or 2015 said something about Poland, this is why you're not coming to events is insane, and it's nonsense.
If it wasn't for the fact a lot of time on the internet has made me fully aware of how I always tell people, unless you've been a well-known person on the internet, you don't know how stupid people are. They're way stupider than you would even imagine. Even a really cynical person won't be on point with how many dumb people are out there. So I will say, I'll give the caveat, it could be dumb people. But at this point in time, when people cite really bizarre, mad conspiracy theories with no shred of evidence like that, maybe Valve said that they couldn't hire him, apropos of nothing, I actually almost start to wonder, are these the fucking the like accounts paid to just post stuff on Reddit. Like I get to
Mate.
that level, Rich. Like I'm getting sick of like how ridiculous the stories are like that. Like
Well-
not even
well-
apropos of anything.
Well, I mean, look, if anything should put that to bed, it was that the next day it was reported that we're now looking at maybe not having Anders there. I mean, almost certainly we're not. And not having Moses there. Now,
And they apparently offered Moses an analyst slot, was what it said in that article, not a commentary gig. Oh, by the way, there's another part I'll add in. I probably should have made this more clear at the beginning because this is actually my main problem with this whole thing. It's not that I wasn't hired, by the way. Like in this particular scenario, I think compared to all the other majors, you could even make the best case for not hiring me. I haven't done that many events this year. I'm not actually a guy who's going full time.
we're starting to get more pros coming through as well.
There's plenty of people who could do the job as well. But this is the problem I have. Is because I actually did show real loyalty to these people and I did work with them a lot. All they had to do was reach out at the beginning and just say, listen, by the way, I've had this up with other tournaments that I've been very cool about. Just reach out at the beginning and say, listen, since we've hired you for all the other events we've done, we understand you might have an expectation you will be hired for the major. It turns out, unfortunately, after much deliberation, we have chosen not to select you as a talent for this stuff. Despite this, though, we really hope in the future we can collaborate again. Sorry for any hard feelings this might have caused. Love Starladder. P.S. Love that respect. That would be, if I was at that email, you would have never heard about this from me. You might have still heard that story about Anders and them. It might have leaked out anyway that I wasn't doing the event. That all might have come out, but I wouldn't be saying any of this shit. That's for sure.
Yeah. So look, let's get into it because obviously, again, we're friends with these people. So look, I'll tell anyone like take all this shit with a pinch of salt. But there was something off at the last major for me when Anders weren't there. And you know, like you don't, Anders shouldn't be missing majors. That was true at 2013 when they put him on the fucking secondary stage. And said, yeah, you're not ready as a commentator to do the big event. And meanwhile, I think Lurpus was a fucking color commentator with Tosspot in what is probably one of the worst CS pairings if you go and listen
They
to
did
it.
the final, I think.
Yeah. But that's ancient history. And I think we all know who Anders is and what he's about and how good he is. And this is a guy.
Maybe Valve just said not to hire Anders though, because he keeps saying, "Are you kidding me?" a lot though. Rich, have you ever thought of that angle? You know?
Yeah, you're right. I haven't actually.
You know my favorite one ever. I'll give you the best one ever of that, like genius, really stupid level conspiracy theories. Here's the best one ever. Is I once complained because Yanko came out and for some reason I can't remember why, but he defended League over something, and I came out and I said, well, to be fair, every tournament organizer with different talent has fucked up. So I said E-League, for example, didn't pay me any of my money for 3 months that a normal person would need to live on. I'm lucky I had another job on the side.
Yeah.
Like when I did this, right, in the thread that people made about the tweet thing, I remember vividly this one guy just goes, maybe they didn't pay him because they didn't like the things he said. It's like, is that how contract law works now?
Yeah,
wasn't really.
I was going to pay you money,
theory.
but then you said that cup of coffee I made you was shite, so fuck it. I'm not paying you now. How dare you? Actually, how dare you?
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, ridiculous. But no, I mean, look, it felt that there was something off there, and I don't want to get too much into it. But the reality is, right, like Anders, come hell or high water, has always made himself available for events. This is a guy with kids. This is a guy who's had health problems. This is a guy who has other projects. You know, this is a guy who has had his own company. And yet, no matter what event it's been, all he's ever asked is like just for very basic, you know, what you would call perks. There was a weird perception in the industry that was going around because people were like just putting out their own lies, their own disinformation campaign about Anders. There was a period where people were saying, oh, his day rate's too high or he's too demanding.
Business class flights was another one I remember people saying.
But here's the thing with the business class flight thing. I think it was like he was traveling between 2 events where it would have been possible for him. Like he was going across 2 time zones and he had his busted fucking gimped up knee. So he was in a lot of pain. And I think one time he said, listen, if you want me to come to this event, I'll fucking, I'd like to, like, could you just give me fucking business class so I can rest my leg, get some sleep, like, you know, fucking like lying down horizontally. because I'm going to be exhausted. Otherwise, I don't think realistically I could do it. And the tournament organizer in question got back and was like, we'll give you Economy Plus, which, as we all know, Economy Plus is what you used to get in economy before fucking airlines found another way to fuck you in the ass, right? So Economy Plus is not even close to business. And I think over that, things broke down. Now, with this major, I honestly kind of feel that, ESL aren't afraid to play fucking hardball with key members of talent. I think we've seen that in the past.
They'll do it.
No, I'm talking about ESL because when
because he skipped the last one, right? Yes, there you go.
I think ESL will just play hardball. They'll be like, we'll put out a broadcast no matter what, and we've got our guys. And they've deliberately brought through other talent and sort of, bound them to them as a product. Like Stunner, for example, who he's come on leaps and bounds. I think Stunner's a really, really he's exceeded my expectations as a piece of talent. I think he's incredible. The job he does, very good in crowd situations. He's getting the desk hosting thing down. Very versatile. You're always going to see Machine at ESL events, even though they had that relationship that kind of broke apart back when he used to be an ESL employee. You're always going to see Frankie at an ESL event. And Henry and Sadikist and Sponge seem to kind of combine the ESL gang, right, with OJ Borg when he's not doing TV. We're seeing more and more Pimp. I love Jacob. I don't think he's quite there yet. He's still got work to do. He knows it. It's not going to hurt his feelings by saying that. But because of these loyalties that they have, they don't mind. They'll just say to people, listen, we know you're the voice of Counter-Strike, Anders, but fuck it. Like, we'll just do what's good for us. What I don't expect is ESL are an established brand. They run the biggest tournaments. They have tournaments that are as big, if not bigger, than majors in their portfolio. They have the Intel Extreme Masters Grand Slam. ESL can really afford to fuck around. First major for a company like this, I think you want as many people that you can rely upon to deliver a good fucking broadcast with you. And let me tell you, it's not just about Anders, who is inarguably the voice of Counter-Strike and should be there at every major. I don't care how much you got to pay him. You find the money. But the idea that you're going to then break up a partnership by saying to Moses, oh, we'll have you at the major, but we'll put you on the analysis desk. The position that puts him in is so fucking disgusting. It's like, okay, well, not only can I go and do a secondary role that I really don't want to do right now because I'm focusing on my commentary, I also fuck my commentary partner over by doing it.
And take an analysis slot.
Yeah, and take an analysis slot away from somebody who could have been doing it. It's like, listen, you obviously don't know Jason because Jason's fucking loyal and he's a good guy.
Absolutely, yeah.
And he's when you consider the fucking hell we've put him through and he still fucking loves us, the idea that he's going to like basically say, yeah, Anders, that fucking partnership that we're, I don't know why I was talking like that. That partnership will work,
Inside voice.
Yeah, I don't know why I've just done that voice for Momo. Sorry,
that's actually what he sounds like when he's off broadcast. It's all a
I can't wait. I'm on fucking broadcast now. All right, fuck you, Anders. Anyway, the idea that like Jason's gonna fucking turn around and fuck over his long-term commentary partner to take a gig that he doesn't really want just so he can get a little badge and say I was in another major, which they are badges of honor and they are accolades because it's meant to be the big celebration of Counter-Strike. Like doing one matters. It's like it's ridiculous. It's just it's just been so poorly mismanaged, and there isn't a tournament on planet Earth that would be better for not having Anders there or not having Jason there. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's been so poorly handled. And you can try and spin. We're going to give others a chance. Do you know what the chance is? The rest of the fucking season prior to the major. That's the chance. Like, for example, if you come out and you had, Launders, goes on to do the major. And it's weird because he's at the minor, but fucking Scrawny isn't there. Right? Is that accurate?
I think that's right.
Yeah. So like, why is that? So why has that happened? That seems crazy to me because something weird's gone on there. By the way, like this is an aside because I remember when Launders and Scrawny were sort of it got leaked to me that they were going to be like included in all of the Blast expansive stuff. They were doing great fucking work. I think we all agree they've become like an elite level pairing, right? But for me, if you came out and said, "Yo, we got Launders and Scrawny doing some commentary here," I'd be like, "Yeah, all right, fine. They probably do deserve a major. I'm down with that." But they've put Launders on the fucking desk in a role that I think he can do analysis, obviously, but I think you have to give him the right partner. Like, he could work with someone like you. I think if
He's
you
a
put
bit
him with
dry on his own, yeah.
that's what I mean. I think if you put him with someone like Pimp or even like a Sean Gares, it would just be a disaster. It would just be a fucking disaster. So the idea that, you know, they've already broke up this pairing for the minor is weird. And that implies they're not going to get a major. And it's like, Launders ain't going to say no to doing the minor. And he definitely ain't going to say no to doing a major. And he definitely deserves one. So it's like, what a fucking, what a terrible situation to put all of the talent in. You know, where
by the
it's
way,
like,
just as an aside, because I actually agree with everything Richard said at the beginning of this segment, by the way. They are a good company as far as I know, even though I actually have had personal conflicts.
pay on time. Yeah.
They've always been legit in how they dealt with me. I actually appreciate this is actually the break if you're in the industry that I give to people who've been around the industry. If you are a DreamHack and a ESL, a Star Ladder, I'll give you way more of leeway than I will a brand new company that's just coming in now with all the millions. If I know you've gone through the grind and you've been in the hard times and even in the dark days you were supporting the game, I'll give you some leeway. So even the angle that could be real, by the way, maybe this is a reason why. Maybe they have financial issues, like I alluded to earlier. Maybe they can't afford to just get all the talent for the major. I would say on that end, though, that's the problem with doing the major, mate. You're doing the World Championship. The World Championship, you're supposed to blow the fucking doors off. You're supposed to hire all the people. Like, one of the problems I have, and it's a side topic, we haven't got too much time, but I'll just throw it in there.
Yeah, no, we got about 10 minutes.
There's always a concern when you do these events as well, that you could get squeezed on your fucking day rate. And I don't care what little shit cunt watching this show right now is like, you should be grateful to do a major. No, it's a job, you daft cunt. You don't do it. It's not like going on the fucking the roller coaster at Disneyland. It's a job. You have to work all day long. You have to prep. You have to get up. You have to go to a different time zone, be away from your family and your loved ones. Like, you have to do all of that because it's a job. So when it's the World Championship, you should get paid the most. That should be the highest day rate. Not taking 60% of your day rate just so that you can say, I was there. And then you get completely cocked by having your name on the fucking talent list and everyone assuming that everything was great. So there's a problem with that scenario there. Like, I know in a mad way, I'm almost glad they didn't offer me like a third of my rate to do 4 days of the event or something, because I'd have had to say no, but then they could have claimed, but we did ask him. Like, so my point with that one is like, why do people still keep getting majors if it indeed is true that anyone has any problems with it? Like, you should surely be able to show a business plan that you can run the whole major.
Oh, yeah. And then, look, the other thing, they immediately lurched from that into some more bad headlines now because of the roster rules.
Yes.
And again, if you remember, there was problems at Face It with, like, you know, applying rules. And there was this problem with the fucking bug. You know, again, it just doesn't bode well. So what happened here was they had this rule where very publicly they'd said, yo, MIBR, we know you don't want, right, for some reason MIBR are being dickheads and they're acting against their best interests and insisting that Cold Zero can't play in the team anymore. It's some of the most childish, petulant shit I've ever seen. Like, you're professionals, you played together for many years, you should put that to one fucking side and just do the major and just shut the fuck up about it. Instead, they're going to events with Zeus, and it's a fucking disaster. They're getting banged out, they're running this brand. Again, I don't know who signed off on this on a management level, but you may as well take that MIBR fucking shirt and just wipe your ass on it and just fucking forget about it. It's
I will just say, as an aside, by the way, just because I said it on Twitter as well, so I'll say it here for the bands. I literally had a conversation with a high up person within the Immortal/MIBR organization last year when there was the first rumor I'd heard, literally from the man himself, that Cold Zero might leave and go to Team Liquid. And I remember saying to this high up person, well, what are you going to do when he eventually leaves? And they told me that unlike every other fucking player in the history of the universe, that actually he would not be allowed to leave and that they would ensure that he stayed and that, you know, he would definitely fulfill his whole contract. If anything, people would only be joining MIBR, not leaving MIBR. Therefore, Cold Zero was never going to leave no matter what he told you. As I told them, well, we'll wait and see when he really wants to leave. And what do you know? As usual, everyone gets to leave. No one stays.
Yeah. So look, so then what happened? So today they announced that once again, in favor of a certain Brazilian team, they're gonna walk back the rules. They're just going to walk it back. They adjust the roster rules where they said because it was a transfer thing, it doesn't count as an emergency. Now they're saying, and it would have meant MIBR would have had to play 4 or play Coldzera. You're not allowed to play 4, so they would have had to drop out. They're now being told, yeah, you can play Zeus. So it's going to, first of all, it devalues the major massively. Because there's no excuse to not have an actual MIBR 5-player roster playing at the event except their own fucking petulance. So it massively devalues the tournament. But then the fact that you absolutely didn't stick to the rules and just to benefit seemingly one big brand, this is the type of stuff that makes me say you weren't ready for a major, because shit like this always comes up. And you've got to be on point and handle it consistently. Now, if you compare what they've done with MIBR, the first people to pipe up about how they've been mistreated was Lazarus. And Starladder put a quickly rushed statement out saying Lazarus needed to make 2 roster changes because the Lazarus roster they lost 10s and they have and they had FNS, I think.
Yes.
So they needed to quickly bring in 2 players, right? But anyway, they were in talks for weeks with Starladder, and Starladder said, no, you can't do it. It doesn't count as an emergency. Then they gave them 24 hours notice that actually, yeah, we're going to walk back the rules. So can you change your thing? So I linked you a comment here, Sam. Basically, Ye, who plays on the team, former Complexity player, said, also for clarification purposes, because he tweeted out about it saying how pissed off he was they changed the rules. It says, in the HLTV article, Starladder stated we cannot attend the event because the roster lock was already in place. This is true, but they failed to mention that we've been in contact with them for weeks prior to the roster lock. It was delayed and discussed over a long period before the roster lock took effect. We were essentially told that Fraud could sub in for one, but that another was deemed not an emergency. Therefore, we were screwed and couldn't get another player. With this rule change, as it stands now for MIBR, Danny could have subbed in for one, and we could have got a replacement for the emergency, and we would have been able to play in the minor. So basically what they've done is they have... I mean, I've looked at the DM exchange. I've looked at everything. Like I reached out to Fraud because obviously I've known him many years. I reached out to Ye, and on the surface of what I've seen, and we don't have a lot of time to break it down, but they have every right to be upset because, again, remember that you can sub a coach in for a non-emergency. Yes. And you can make an emergency roster swap. They deemed one roster move to not be an emergency, and they deemed one was an emergency. So basically, it looks to me, based on what I've seen, based on all the evidence, Lazarus absolutely would have got their shit together and could have been competing at a minor.
Oh, and 2 things with that. One, actually, Lazarus has more of an emergency than MIBR does. One of their players is banned and cannot play at the major. Coldzera absolutely can play, and the official story is he wants to play and is being forcibly benched. So MIBR is just saying, right, this guy's leaving after the tournament anyway, so we're not going to let him play. That's an emergency. We don't have a player. Well, you just chose to take him out the lineup. You do have a player. That one doesn't even make sense. And the other angle is, the key point here is, it's not about what the rule is. It's that you must have the rule 100% nailed down before a single match ever happens in the whole tournament. Exactly. Ideally, before even the online qualifiers, you should then put it in a rule book, send it to every team, and there's no excuse after that.
Yeah. And you know, look, this is something we'll have to go into more detail on the next episode or something, but because this is a huge problem. But it is reminiscent of Face It, in the sense that, you know, we're always getting these question marks about when you can and can't play, who you can and can't swap. This is child's play. This is so easy to just do correctly. And the stakes are unbelievably high. The entire future of this team could hinge on whether or not they got to a major, whether or not they get picked up by a big org, whether they get a fucking big sponsorship. You have now deprived them of potential future because you've decided out of nowhere, out of the blue, to walk it back. And here's the problem. I don't know if Star Series did it because they were like, oh, it's just the right thing to do, actually thinking about it. But what it reeks of is that because MIBR are a big brand and a big team with big names, and they were going to have to drop out of your tournament and it would have hurt viewership, you changed the rules. That's what it looks like. It is not hard to construct that narrative at all. And if you're making decisions on that reason, you shouldn't be running tournaments, because that goes to the heart of integrity, you know, where you apply rules selectively. You know, E-League took a lot of shit for sticking to the rules and not making an exception when Luminosity went to SK.
Yep.
We got fucking crucified for it. But we stuck to the rules that were in the document we put out at the start, knowing we were going to get crucified, and then we reviewed them for next fucking season. Because that's what you have to do. It doesn't matter if it hurts your bottom line. You got to stick to the fucking rules, or what is the point?
And by the way, as a last shot, I'll even throw a little bit of shade at HLTV.org for that. Peter from HLTV.org described that decision by E-League to uphold their own rules and not allow SK to change organizations as the worst decision. I think he said it was the worst decision in the history of like admin decisions. The same guy is the guy who has repeatedly been in favor of mid-season changing roster rules. Like, I don't understand people like this. Like, if there's one consistent thing that must happen with all rules, is they must be uniformly applied across the entire competitive period. That's why the Lazarus one's the key.
Yeah. So look, we've got to wrap it up there because Duncan has a hard out. We would have gone a little bit longer, but we can pick it up.
Won't be that long till the next one.
Yeah, we'll pick it up next episode, probably early next week. So first up, let's quickly just get the questions out the way. We had Reykjavik on Steam, $100. With how impressive the Blast LA was, is Refresh likely to assist Blizzard with their Overwatch League production? Surely with multiple locations, the Overwatch League could do with some cozy and intimate events. I mean, I don't think the Overwatch... Yeah, Overwatch have got their own problems coming up Reykjavik because this fucking, what's it called, the Homestead season, which they've had to massively scale down. Trust me, internally still a massive disaster, so pay attention to that. But Pounder420 asks, what's the most outrageous piece of fan gift / art that you or a CS pro has been given? I've been sent like fucking dick pics and shit.
All right then.
Is that a gift?
Reasonable.
I mean, all right.
You didn't see the penis?
And then you were like, sorry, sir, this is a Starbucks.
And I said, look, red eye for the last time.
Exactly. Just because we used to know each other. And then I says, listen, Nicola, this fucking front row experience is too far from mine.
Well, yeah, he said we're going to change it from a front row experience into a fucking backdoor experience is what he fucking said. So yeah, I've been sent some dick pics and like just, you know, weird stuff. You know, I consider them gifts. I'm not like some mad mental, like, sure, you know, fucking insecure guy. Like, you know, the people sent me a penis. Fair enough. But I can't think of anything I ever got on an event. I've had some nice stuff. People gave me like a tie from their like local college football team and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think I've ever had anything beyond that's more outrageous than people sending me their penis with, you know, do you like? Like, yeah, nice tight dick player. Like, you know, what do you want me to say? Like, you know, what do you say? Like, tight dick player, dog.
Exactly, yeah.
What about you, Doug?
Luckily, I haven't had many weird things said. And also, I'm so unashamed of who I am that I've even, like, for example, probably the weirdest thing I got, because he said art, was something I've even actually myself used and put all over my social media, which was one guy did during the Summoning Insight era, which is a League of Legends talk show I did do a drawing of me where I'm sort of like some sort of like medieval / fantasy lord with like a fucking like scepter or something. And it was like, and it was titled something like Thorin, Lord and Summoner of the Light, which is like, that is a bit weird, I can't lie. But I don't give a fuck. So I even put it out myself, like, yeah, sick, sound.
All right then. So I hope that answers the question. But Pounder, thanks for your patronage and continued support. So all that remains to be said is we'll give a shout out to our patrons, our $100 patrons, Jerky's Minion, Detlef Insomniac, and Reykjavik on Steam. Our $50 patrons, Sard Sawar, But Pounder 420, Watch Doge, Madsen, Benakagi Assassin, Mike Feed Me, Marcus Kiumpar, Tobias Bernasconi, Carve, and TC Owens. That was by the numbers. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next week.